does it all hinge on the number of qubits? And if so, like, where are we at today with that?
Yeah, so I think the number of qubits certainly is one metric that we go by, though it's not the whole story. Uh, you know, the reason the reason okay, so a certain another metric that we need to worry about is really the quality of the qubits and the type of gates that you're performing. So it's about the interaction between the different qubits, which is essentially what is what is doing the entanglement and allowing you to get the speed up that you are looking for. So it's also once you start to scale up the number of qubits, you start to worry about error correction because if you don't without error correction, which is a big bottleneck for quantum computing, which is that when you start to have more qubits, of course, because they're so tiny and sensitive to noise, you expect the amount of noise to go up, right? Without error correction, you start to get this drowning of the information in that noise because you have so many qubits. Without error correction, that is going to be the case. But if you do have error correction, then you can start to suppress that noise as you grow the size of the QPUs, the chips and everything. So it's, a number of qubits certainly is important, and with more qubits, with more good qubits, you can have error correction. But you need both.
That error correction is actually handled by qubits as well, right?
Yeah, it's true entanglement and a very clever encoding where you could actually, because one thing about qubits is that when you start to measure them, the way, at least in the way that we measure them now, you destroy them. Actually, not destroy them, but you actually disturb the information that's being stored in the qubits. So to do error correction, you need to have extra qubits, and then depending on which code you use, you could correct certain types of errors. Hopefully all errors, and then when you start to measure, you do syndrome measure. You can detect the error. You can try to detect the error, which is called syndrome measurement. The syndrome is like the error syndrome. So what is the error? And then you can try to correct it. But then because when you read the qubit, you would destroy the information that's stored that's in it. You have to then use entanglement with extra qubits and then do it in a way that you're not actually destroying the information while you're trying to detect and correct the error. So that whole area is fascinating, and I can't say to be an expert at it. But I do, I did learn about it, and I followed the news recently, and it was just a particular type of error correcting code. It's called a surface code, and it was just recently last year that was demonstrated by two groups almost simultaneously. ETH and so Andreas Wadroff in ETH and Si-Hui Tan's group at Hefei in China. So that was fascinating. And then of course shortly after, Google had another experiment where they showed that not only that they demonstrated the surface code, but they also showed that as they grow the size of the number of qubits in the code, the error did not blow up. So in that way, they were able to suppress the errors even when they grew the size of the code.